Here we go. Awfully quiet. Incredibly quiet, gang, at the moment.
Augustine is trying to find his mute button. It's in Spanish, Augustine.
Because we are quiet because we are managing so many fronts. We are still working. We are on our daily daily jobs and casual life. And so we are multitasking. Today is going to be like a marathon. It's going to be a short term for what we are doing today.
Indeed, indeed. And Jim, go ahead, Rob.
We got Clubhouse going on at the same time, so we're not simulcasting on Clubhouse.
Nice to see you, Jim, there, and Gordon.
Good stuff. Over to you, Lindsay.
Okay. So welcome everybody who's come along for this particularly interesting session, certainly by its title, The Death of National Income Taxes. I'd like to hear a lot more about this. I'll be paying attention of a type that you probably haven't seen before. Jim Kiles is hosting this session. I believe it's going to be highly interactive. And Jim, I wonder if I stop sharing my screen, would you like to share yours now?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good start.
Excellent.
And thank you everybody for being here and for the amazing efforts that so many people have put out to make all this happen today. So hopefully you guys are seeing me now. And let me launch this. Okay, do we have that? Lindsay, are we good?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, great. I got the right slide up and everything. So first, I want to thank you, Lindsay, for being the MC here today and helping everybody, get organized. This has been no small task in terms of being able to do what has to be done to administer each individual event. Not to mention all the work that Rob and team have done in terms of pulling together all of the things that need to make this work, and of course Jill Rosenberg making these great templates for us and backgrounds. It's been really great. So let's dive in a little bit here. So we're going to talk about the death of income taxes and how that came about during the pandemic period. And so the ground rules that I'd like to set here, are really that there are no ground rules. We're going to try and do this in a way that's a little bit like a TED Talk, but it's more of a presentation. And given the size of the group, and the nature of the content, which is emotional and very, very technical, because it's all about financial mechanics. So given that, please interrupt as you find it appropriate, either by chat or just make your opinion known and ask a question or make a statement, whatever works for you. Because we're gonna talk about some things that have really come forward in the last year, but actually it's something that's been happening for a very long time. So let's dig in first. So I want to make sure everybody understands that I have absolutely no qualifications to do what I'm going to be doing today, talking about this capacity. My background is in education at the Maxwell School at Syracuse University, in public affairs. That's probably the best qualification I have for this. I have to admit, though, that it was a long time ago, and we didn't have to go to class that much because it was during the anti-war stuff. And so I might have missed some things. And so if you catch me missing things today, no problem. Dig in, correct me if I'm wrong on the facts. And we'll talk about facts in a second because that's an interesting thing. Currently, I'm a business person, have been for a long time. Very entrepreneurial. I'm an investor and an entrepreneur in startups. Right now, I'm big on renewable energy. So, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. So, well, here's what we're going to talk about. So, we call it the death of income taxes, and it's meant to be a title that is a bit kind of grabs you. But the essence is that while we throw the word death in there, it's really about life and the good news that we got from the pandemic, which is really fundamentally that when there's a problem, our governments have the capacity to step up and pay for things. And they do it in a big way. And if we think about it, really, they always have. But there is absolutely no question that they could do more. And in that context, one of the things that I've really been thinking about a lot is that while these great things have come up around the ability to manage and handle the pandemic and the great things that are going on there, there's been a lot of dispute. I don't think I've ever been in a time where I've seen more dispute in my lifetime. And then thinking about it and looking at so many of the issues that have cropped up, we've seen enormous emotional stake on whatever side people are taking on all of these issues. And the big question I kept asking myself is why? And as I really examined what the issues were, I believe it always comes down in some way to the money. And so if I think that somehow I'm going to have less, or that my heirs are going to have less, or my friends, or people that I have real, stake with, I get a little more emotional, and I get a little bit more concerned, and so my proposition that we're putting out here is that income tax is something that takes away from people, takes away from corporations. And as a result, they act in a certain way to protect their stake. And that because they act that way, we have dug in issues, positions on issues where maybe we shouldn't, maybe the issue itself is not getting the right attention. So that's the premise that we'll start with. So we're talking about taxes. And I don't know how many of you know this, we're going to talk mostly about the United States because that's where I'm from, but also because of the power of the U.S. dollar and economy and the central role it plays in the solution that we're going to talk about here. And so Lincoln, what did he do? Well, he did a lot of things. And in the United States, we zero in really on one, which was freedom for slaves and architecting the success of not having the Union be divided. But very few people really understand how proactive Lincoln was in driving forward with sharing the wealth of the country and equalizing the ability of people to survive. And so prior to the time that he was assassinated, one of the things he did was establish the income tax. It was the first income tax in the United States. And it was something that paid for, or was intended to pay for, the great Reconstruction programs he had, but he didn't get to do that. But it still was a big start in sharing the cost of the things that we need to do. So blame it on Abe, right? But the weird thing is, it's something that was so emotional and that started off with a direct relationship to very considerable and important issues in society, became so technical. Interesting is that today is April 15th. It's the day, historically, every day in my lifetime until now, we've had to be thinking about, did we get our paperwork in the United States to the IRS, and did we pay, more importantly, from everyone's perspective? And, so it's always been sort of a maudlin kind of holiday where we say, all right, well, if anyone wants to take off to do their tax returns, they should, even though they should have had it done a long time ago. And so the idea that we're talking about this in the Great Swan Guild today, on the day where we normally would be filing our taxes, when we don't have to, I think it's May 27th or something like that is the day they set. I'm not sure of that, but I already did mine. And so it's a technical thing. And as we talk about this from a US perspective, there's a couple of things I wanted to raise about that so you you heighten the awareness and the understanding of what is actually being set out here today. And that is that fundamentally, the United States, because of a lot of things that have happened that we're going to talk about, really is a fiat currency of one country that has
Jim,
Lost you there.
Yeah, Jim, we've lost your sound. Have we lost Jim entirely or just his sound?
I don't have a full transcript of Jim's
Down.
note, but I did add a note that in Canada, income taxes were issued much later than the Americans. However, it was also issued by Robert Borden, the Prime Minister at the time, as a temporary measure that's just on its way to 100 years of effective balancing of the world.
It was a World War I thing, as I recall, and maybe that's why Robert Borden got onto our $100 bill as well. Perhaps his tide of money over time has been large. We're just filling in some of the space between Jim making his way back into our room, but it's
We've got the Bobs and they've got the Benjamins. Is that the deal, Sean?
It sounds that way. There's actually an interesting dissertation somebody made on the meltdown crisis of 2008, singularly being because all of our bankers tended to be of Scottish ancestry and all of U.S. bankers tended to be of Irish ancestry, and some of the different risk allocations and cultural characteristics of both leading to different roads of financial trajectories for both countries. But yeah, so from an income tax standpoint, I know a little bit of where Jim was going, but he'll probably be back in a short bit. I mean, I think Jim comes at this subject from a source of how do we move ahead, because I think always the reluctance was, wow, is Jim going to advocate no income tax, and what is the political sensibility to that? And I think he's taken a really strong view of just abundance and just how I think there's a number of factors in that Jim's probably much more capable than me of talking about in terms of just how income tax plays a role in our life and how there could be an alternate scenario. So I don't know if Jim's back yet, but
Still not back, Sean. I know from my perspective.
I can throw in a very silly little statement, being of Scottish ancestry. And that is that, the Scots are well reputed, I think, around the world for being poorly reputed around the world for being mean with money. And that is precisely because they dominated the banking industry in Canada and in the UK for such a period. Just a little throw that one in there.
no, there used to be as a recovering marketer, just I don't want to go too far down the cultural trails, but we used to have different litmus test markets in Canada based on, a lot of times it was run down cultural lines, where Kitchener, Waterloo, which is a very German type of town, if Germans are going to spend their money on something, it better be good. I mean, that's led to a whole generation of really well-engineered products. And so for Procter & Gamble, when I was just starting out, Germany was kind of, or Kitchener-Waterloo was our litmus test. If it could work there, it could work anywhere in Canada. And so, yeah, it's interesting how cultural lines play a role there. And I found Jim's comment already that April 15th is typically a point in the year where we'd be paying income taxes. Really interesting. And I think we've got Jim back again. So Jim, we've been doing the tap dance. Let's see if we can bring you back into the front room again.
All right. Let's unmute you.
He seems to be animated. He seems to be trapped in this prison wall of gray clouds here, but he'll come out.
There he is.
I'm here, so apologies to everyone. So I don't know what happened there. I'll try sharing the screen again. All right, so that should be up.
There you go. We're getting there.
Thank you, Jim.
Can you see my screen?
We can see your desktop.
Okay, we want to see this though. Okay, so I was presenting away and I got to this slide. Where did I drop? if anybody knows.
Slide 7.
Slide 7. Okay, so I was here on this one. Or, yeah, that would be 7. Yeah, so we didn't miss much. Sorry about that. I honestly don't understand what happened there, but I went away for some reason. This what I was talking about here was fiat currency and the idea that the United States, through its dollar mechanism, can issue and pay any bill that it needs to pay. And that underlies the need for an alternative way of funding things if we're not going to pay for things with taxes. And so, and that's a critical thing we probably should talk about more during the QA when we get there. So the organizing premise, this is pretty critical. So we should do the good things we do in the tough times all the time. That's the premise. And we spent $4.5 trillion in the United States on COVID aid during the past 2 years, past year and a half. I'm not even at the right number now. And so $4.5 trillion is a lot of money. And that was spent to solve a very, very serious problem. And we can do it. And so why can't we do it all the time? I think that's the question a lot of people are asking. I mean, the ability of governments to step up and do what needs to be done isn't something new. And interestingly, in our time, the number that's comfortable, silently went past the $1 trillion mark in the United States. And I remember the big fuss we made when Obama asked for $789 billion. After saying, well, I can't ask for more than a trillion. So that's what's happening. So the next part of this is going to be about stuff that I believe. And so, as you can see from the illustration, you hear a lot of facts, and a lot of times they're true. And then you form your beliefs from your facts, or at least the ones that penetrate you. And so, all of us, I think, experience this from time to time, the awakening that happens when you actually find something that you believe in that is new because of facts that you've heard over and over again before. And this conversation is one of those areas. And so everything here is going to be based on stuff that Jim believes. And so let's get into a few of those things. And so so a big one is that taxes cause conflict, and it's in Jim's belief the biggest underlying problem we have in the United States. And so if you consider in this collage on the left we have the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. On the right, we have a confrontation in Portland involving different groups from different sides of the same issue. And on the right, we've got the guys from Antifa confronting the police. On the left, we have the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys going after the police at the Capitol. Both did a similar thing. Both, in my view, did this for the same reason, because they are feeling threatened about the things that they believe are theirs in the economy. And they want to be sure that they are protected with respect to their perceived rights, with respect to their legacy as citizens of the United States, and their access to things that can help them advance those legacies. And so violence is the end result of these folks asserting their rights. But we can go into lots of others, and we will in a bit. So here's another thing Jim believes. We say that taxes are no longer necessary. We don't discuss it, and we haven't ever. But really, we moved away from reliance on taxes in the New Deal and in World War II. That was the first instance. And when people criticize the United States government for being proactive about things. It began with the New Deal. There's no doubt about that. The accomplishments of the New Deal are not debatable. Your feeling about what happened is certainly a debate. And today we're not really concerned about the politics of things. We're only concerned about the mechanics. And so the New Deal did something, and it did something with government money that was not funded by the taxpayers. It was funded by the government itself, in this case, using essentially borrowed dollars at the time. And then World War II is an even bigger example. In fact, it is the biggest example in the history of the United States until now. And a lot of money was spent on World War II, winning a war. And at the time that the money was going out, at least 50% of the American people in the polls that were done were against that expenditure. That's an amazing thing. When you read the history, it is amazing that Roosevelt was able to get done what he got done if you believe it was a good thing. So, but then more stuff started happening from a different approach, which was that let's do things that make things better in the world for people out there. And then this underlying idea that kind of combined the political forces of the right and the left, in that we could do the good things that make people better at the same time as we empower the US economy to be more powerful. And that's essentially what Jim believes it happened with the Marshall Plan. And so, making those emergency expenditures was a pretty powerful thing. So here's a graph of pretty much everything that's happened from a money perspective over the last, 70 or 80 years. And so, in all of these cases, we haven't felt the pain of increasing deficits. Probably the main reason we haven't felt the pain of the increasing deficits, in the opinion of Jim, is that we're using the wrong chart. So if you look at this chart here, you see on the left-hand side, that we're talking about national debt as a percentage of GDP. The reality is that most folks think about the government spending dollars the way they spend their own dollars, their household dollars. So there's no such thing as a GDP in the mind of the average citizen. They only have the money they have and the wealth they have, which in some cases are the same thing, but in many other cases they're two different things. And so if the United States were to look at everything it spends in all of these given cases, you wouldn't be using a 100% metric or against all of the individual activity economically to determine what's actually been spent. And I'm sorry for diving deep into the financial mechanics here, but it's important. You'd be looking and saying, number one, am I spending more money than I currently have? Okay. And am I borrowing against my wealth? And if my wealth is like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, well, borrowing against my wealth is effectively meaningless to me. And the premise that I'm putting forward today is that the United States, for example, has more wealth than 1 million Bill Gateses or Jeff Bezoses, or maybe even more. And so the idea of spending $4 trillion to fix the pandemic is a nothing. And that the financial tools we use to describe that, are being disingenuous when they throw out numbers that say that we're spending 100% of something. That 100% in the average viewpoint is not meaningless. More than 100% of the money I have, yeah, that's a good story, but it's not. And more than 100% of my wealth, well, that would be a big problem. But we're nowhere near it, and we never will be, and that's why this works. And so, where does this all come from? It's got a real source. So Stephanie Kelton is an economist who is associated with the most liberal groups in the United States, and with Bernie Sanders. But this isn't about that. It's about how the financial mechanics work. And so, so while the politics of it, of the utilization of the system are important, they're not for our consideration. We don't really care how the dollars get spent. We just want to be able to spend more to deal with the issues that we have and to be more aggressive, and not do it in a way that takes something that someone perceives to be theirs. And again, can somebody say something? Because I don't know if I'm on.
You're on, Jim.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. So good. So let's move on to, from Stephanie to the folks who really architected the economy the way it is. So we got this this position of having the U.S. Have a dollar be fiat through the actions of a guy that many consider to be the worst president in the history of the United States. That's Richard Nixon. He's an architect. The other architect, it seems that they come from the financial side of the house, is Ronald Reagan. And he did something that was even more consequential than what Nixon did. What Nixon did was to eliminate the convertibility of the US dollar into gold. And by doing that, the value of the economy was no longer measured in gold. You can still buy gold out there on a stock price against a dollar, but the real underpinning of both the United States economy and the world economy is now the dollar, which is actually more reflective of what I was talking about earlier, the actual wealth and well-being of the United States. That's what stands behind all this. That's why it works. And so when we mess with that, we're messing with the dollar. We're messing with the wealth of the United States, with the validity of the fiat dollar, and we're messing with the well-being of the world. So the other guy is Ronald Reagan, and this is something a lot of people don't know. In 1981, when I first encountered the Fed, it was early in my career. It was when I walked in the bank and I tried to get a loan to buy a piece of property, and the rate they quoted me was 17%. And that was when we had this amazing inflation going on almost for a decade. And the main reason that we had that inflation was that we didn't allow the Fed to count all the money. So the Fed's supposed to control inflation, but they had no ability to know how much money was actually in the economy that they were supposed to control. An absurdity. And so when Reagan came in with Volcker in 81, they fought hard with Congress and they got permission finally to account for all of the money. And the money that was missing in the account, kind of absurd, but we have an equal absurdity today, and I'll tell you about it in a second, was demand deposits. So savings and checking was not counted in any way with respect to figuring out how to manage the economy. Well, they started in 1981. They made it a major project at the Fed. They did amazing work. And today we pretty much know how much money's out there. But consistent with the way our information economy works, people are now figuring out ways to remove dollars from the count. And so Bitcoin, maybe not Bitcoin itself, but certainly cryptocurrency is taking dollars out of the count. And probably the biggest place that dollars are going out of the count is in the value of new information technology businesses all over the world. And until they get their dollars counted by going public, that value is not anywhere in the count. And so those are places where there's risk. So, well, let's talk about that information revolution, because the information revolution changed everything. Since 1995, the wealth has exploded in a way that we never, ever imagined prior to that time. And so even though we still collect 4 trillion each year from our citizens from income tax, you know, the percentage of that amount against the actual wealth of the world is inconsequential. And so, you know, this has been the biggest change. And it's now literally, I measure everything that happened in the information revolution from the announcement of Windows 95. That's another thing Jim believes, because there's a number there, 95. So I know 95 is a year that I can put a stake in the ground and say that's when it actually happened, although there's lots of other reasons to think it happened a few years before that. But that means we got 25 years of this activity going on. And that activity has accelerated beyond belief in the last 5. And so, and there are, with renewable energy and energy efficiency and climate change technologies and all the things that are happening right now, you know, with the commitment to infrastructure and all the other things that are going on, I can't even throw out a number to suggest, you know, what the multiple is by which even today's economy will change in terms of value in the next 10 years. But I know it's huge. And so with all of that, let's go back to this, you know, so again, you know, we've got a tug of war. I mean, that picture at the Capitol is a great picture because these people really believe that there's something going on that isn't benefiting them. And that by doing the things that we're doing as a society, we are impacting their legacy in terms, in the view of this presentation, in terms of the tax dollars they pay and the known wealth that they've accumulated being expended in ways that they don't agree with. That's fundamentally what this is all about. On the other side of the picture, we have a group of guys that feels just the opposite. They want more to be spent. They want more to be spent for specific things. They want more tax dollars, and they feel that the government isn't doing what it needs to do to spend more dollars. And you hear the you heard it, 10 years ago, you heard the 1% and the Occupy movement. That was all about taking from people, and now you hear the leading politicians on the Democratic side, some of them saying, we have to take back from the rich, we have to take back from the corporations. So it's the same tug of war on the other side, trying to take money that belongs to the other people in the world, when the amount of money that belongs to those people that is actually in their hands is very little compared to what the value of the overall system has. And so if we change that approach, and instead of going after each other, we're to be articulating when we have specific needs to pay for, then we could pay for a lot more things. And so think about this. I mean, the issues that underlie the Black Lives Matter movement are extremely consequential. I mean, they go back 500 years in the United States to activities that all of us believe if they hadn't happened, we'd be a lot better off. But they did. And over a period of time, the people that you see, arguably have been wronged. And so they want something, and they want something from someone. And the people that feel that they're threatening them and giving them and taking the things that they have and they want to keep having, are very, very much opposed. And so that's what you have. And you have other similar issues. You have international poverty in certain places, beyond belief. And there are lots of people that want to take dollars and spend it there. And we're all in the middle thinking about the problems with infrastructure that we need to have. And then on the right, everybody wants to spend money on climate change technology, maybe, until those who don't want to spend money on climate technology weigh in. And again, given the wealth we have, there really is no reason to have the kinds of debate we have. Obviously, the government will have to make decisions, and in a world where we have pure democracy with a modern monetary theory, those debates will be about what we're going to do collectively rather than taking something out of someone's pocket to pay for something else to happen. And that's what we do today. And what about this at the border? And the idea, I heard a great idea yesterday. Somebody said, let's make the border impermeable and put Cadillac hotels there, make it safe so we don't have, people in cages. But we do right now. And so then there's a big argument. These people are coming here to take my money. Some people think, and others think, we can't allow this to happen. We have to take care of these people. And so rather than it being a fight about my dollars paying for something, if we could think about it as our dollars, it would be better. And then another one, the threat of a crash. I mean, it's this would be a black swan crash. That's why I thought it would be very appropriate given what we like to talk about. But it's a threat, and a lot of people are concerned about that. And the reality is that if you didn't have taxes, one of the mechanisms by which the market goes up and down would be eliminated. And so that's something to think about too. And there's a lot of people that would like us to do that. And so, essentially, here's the real viewpoint of all the money that the federal government collects from its taxpayers, and it's everything from Social Security to estate tax to of course the income tax, and all of that is at risk, and maybe we don't really need to do any of it in a world that has the kind of abundance that we have, particularly in the value of the things that we're involved with. 3 point. It used to be, you look at $1 trillion number and you'd say, oh, that's a really, really big number. But now you look at it and say, well, if we just sold 100% of Amazon and 100% of Apple, we'd have 3.7 trillion, two companies from amongst millions. So not a big number anymore. And but we don't. I mean, so the premise here is that we wouldn't want to do anything that involved taking from each other. And so the idea that's being floated is that it's time to end the income tax, and so hopefully it's worth a discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to everybody to jump in. And I'll stop. No, I don't want to stop that. I want to stop share. There we go.
And I'll just remind people that you're probably on mute. So if you'd like to jump in, just try to remember to unmute yourself.
Hey, Jim, it's Sean here. You mentioned cryptocurrency in passing, and it's funny, if I go online right now and look at people who are studying future finance, this is almost the leading edge of the curve, where they're all dabbling in NFTs and crypto and where this is going, and maybe the reinvention of the world. And in part, when I listened to government, certainly in the early days of crypto, there was a very large insecurity about this is going to become unregulated, and in terms of my ability to raise taxes and maybe income taxes, this might be a front for avoiding that. Any popular thoughts in terms of the abolition of income tax and either its benefits or its handicaps in terms of crypto?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, so folks like Tim Draper, who are the drivers of the crypto world, make it clear that the premise of crypto is to do exactly that, to create an economy outside the regulation of the financial benefits, from governments. And so So this is already happening and happening in a big way. When somebody says, pay me in crypto, they're meaning they don't want to have a financial transaction that can be tracked by the governments for income tax purposes. Gambling is another thing that's very similar. It's like there are these side economies that grow up, and people go to jail because they engage in these things, and they're productive people, but they're going to jail, and because we believe we have this financial mechanic that we have to live with, and it's just there would be so much pain removed if we didn't have the income tax, and we really could operate without it. And so you're right, Sean. Crypto is a huge place for it to play, and the one thing I love about crypto, is, and I'm not a crypto player, but I believe that crypto, from the perspective of a startup, is engaged in an activity comparable to what the Federal Reserve does. They're tracking dollars in a world that exists outside the world of the traditional financial metrics. And the key thing that's happening with crypto that I know my good friend Andrea Cates likes to talk about is the blockchain. I mean, so the blockchain allows managed transactions to occur in a secure way, without the interference of governments or even any other kind of associations of people. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Jim, thanks so much, because you are having like a great time. I love the way you enjoy explaining it. Yesterday, I was reading about, Coinbase just went the IPO, and it has like one thing that the stakeholders can go like really go down the stock, because this SEC is still not regulating or that aspect of the crypto. I like crypto. I enjoy crypto. I have crypto. The thing is, look at this. In Argentina, they will get you like a commission and stuff for holding BTC and for exchanging Bitcoin. And that's a deregulated market. So here in Uruguay, I still can have my crypto, and it's like my crypto on my wallet on the US. But if someone comes and mess around with that, there's going to be problems, huge problems. Because that's like...
Yeah. And Augustine, no. I would say you point out, you're making a great point, and it's the same point that underlies the conversation about taxes. Is this idea of in my own way, this is a Jim Beliefs thing. They're kind of like hall monitors in school. Remember when you were in school, you found your way around out in the hall, and then all of a sudden some other student would come up to you and say, where are you and where do you belong? And to me, that was always like, none of your business. I'm in the school. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't need to tell you about it. And so crypto is an independent action by highly creative entrepreneurial people who actually are creating enormous benefits for the whole world by virtue of enabling additional activities to occur in a way in which wealth can support them and they can support new wealth. And so I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of startup stock. To me, startup stock is the same thing as crypto. And I love people that do, what we call bootstrap activities and don't take venture capital and build real value, and then tell somebody, I was looking at a startup not too long ago, and it was the first time anybody saw them, and they said, well, our company's worth $400 million. And one of the more traditional VCs there said, well, what do you mean it's not worth $400 million? And the guy said, the startup guy said, it is. That's what we've staked it at. If you want to buy into our company, that's the price. So it's the same thing with crypto. We've got a few more minutes.
Trying to unmute there. I'm loving it. And yeah, the thing is like regulation with crypto is going to be like a tough one. I'm hurting for the states also because their SEC and the regulation around crypto is like crypto is a decentralized true autopilot stuff that we reach. And this is like the future of economy, DeFi. There's no more like to it, and countries and legislations are still trying to figure out a way around it to hurt us like our economy when holdings have real value and it's a high value.
And you know, Augustine, this is another side of the same equation in terms of that we've been talking about with respect to taxes and the impact of taxes on people with different opinions and people becoming concerned because of that. I mean, the government is only trying to regulate crypto because they want to be able to control it and secure tax benefits from it. Revenues from the crypto sales. There's another underlying, and I don't want to downplay, what the statutes are all about. Really, it's there are valid concerns around people stealing things from other people or telling false stories. But I would say that anytime the SEC intervenes in something where they don't have an allegation about somebody doing something illegal in terms of telling false stories about what they do, then their real motive is to try to control and take some of what belongs to the people that developed it, and that's the problem. And that, again, we run up against that same problem.
The last one. I know it firsthand because living in Uruguay, when you move assets from the States like to here, South America, like big money or something, there's this huge anti-counterfeit laundry terrorism type of system that you have to go through that is like, dude, it's my client, she's sending me $5,000 and it's like there's no sex child trafficking behind it or like nothing weird, no illicit drugs, no shit. It's like services. We are providing services, and sometimes services cost like big money, and you have to move it from like frontiers. And now it's like, dude, pay me in crypto. Yeah.
And obviously another analogy that I would draw around that is gold back in the day. I mean, the economy originally, it existed on a barter basis early on, but the advent of gold got people really excited about the fact that they could go find some gold, and therefore they would have value that would, be transferable into other commodities. And so, and Bitcoin's a little bit about that, especially. The original idea of crypto, which is the reason I don't really like Bitcoin as much as I like the other cryptos, was that you use your computer to find a prime number, and then based on finding that prime number, you can get a certain number of coins, and then and so, as you know, we today, one of the negative sides of the Bitcoin world in particular is that we spend enormous amounts of computer resources trying to create new prime numbers. So it's kind of crazy.
Loving this, thanks. I don't want to hog the combo between you and I'm enjoying it. That's why there are other cryptos. This subject can go, oof, we need to make a day of the crypto of the Swan, and thanks.
Hey, Jim, quick one. Most inspiring book about your talk that would augment what you said. Pick one.
Most inspiring book? I would go with Stephanie Kelton's The Deficit Myth, because a lot of the financial mechanics that I was discussing are really explained very well there. The thing about Stephanie's book and Stephanie's perspective on modern monetary theory, though, is that because she is such an ardent Bernie Sanders fan, actually his financial advisor in his campaigns, she has a perspective that is basically that the reason you do MMT is because you want to create the welfare state, and so if you take that all by itself, then it's in essence you're political at that point, and that may be what people decide to do. What I'm saying here today is that just take the first part, just free up the money, and then let's decide how we want to spend it. And that's the fair way to do it. But Kelton is brilliant, and there's some great YouTube videos that she's done. She's certainly the leader of the MMT movement, and I think that if this movement proceeds, then you're going to see a lot of other things like those of us in California saw this amazing evolution of this guy, Howard Jarvis. I don't know if anybody knows about Howard Jarvis, but Howard Jarvis is a guy that in the 70s, under Ronald Reagan, decided that Californians that owned houses were being moved out because of the increased value of those homes and the increased tax base against those homes. So immigration coming to California was going to cause Californians in their homes to have to leave. Well, the liberal base in California was just like totally against the Jarvis movement, but Jarvis was able to pass Prop 13, which is the most famous prop in California, back in 1978. And so what that did was limit the ability of any government, federal, state, county, city, from taxing on property at an increase to the value that somebody came into the home paying. And that still exists in California. And so back in 78, everybody was like, oh, Jarvis, terrible guy. He is stopping us from becoming the state that we envisioned. This is on the liberal side. But the conservatives, loved him, and Reagan endorsed him, and that's how everything got through. Today, he is the most beloved man in the state of California by a wide majority in terms of the people from that era, because it was wise to do what he did. He restricted the government without saying what had to be spent. And so nothing changed in terms of how things are done in Sacramento. And of course, the emergence of the information technology sector in California has resulted in windfall after windfall for the state on the income tax side. So if you eliminate income tax and have Prop 13, well, then California becomes a dream state again. So
great, thanks, Jim. I've been tracking the deficit myth and Rayworth's stuff, the donut.
Oh yeah,
the donut economy, which is MMT Muscato as well. And I think that one of the metaphors, and I want to bounce this off you, one of the metaphors I think people are stuck on is that government's a business with a bank account with some money in it, and if there's no money in it, it can't work.
Yeah,
that is a myth. That is it's never been that way. And I think that we need to teach, like at grade 6, what fiat currency is, so that we can create things together. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea, but we should do it through like something like matchsticks, or or things that kids can trade, and give them the ability to have a reserve ratio against the dollars they have, and expand what they can spend. It's a learning that we need to have as citizens, right, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And we get so tied into this income tax paradigm. You get me going on this, I can go for hours. The income tax paradigm in the United States is brilliant. I mean, it's been set up as its own industry. So there's this IRS that exists that employs 100,000 or more people that has power over the entire population without asking the government for any kind of power over them. And we allow that to happen because of the myth that you're talking about. We think it has to be done that way. So I think I'm running out here. Lindsay, is there?
Lindsay being kind. She's got all sorts of signals that she's supposed to be using, and she's not. She's just.
No, you know why? I'm sorry. It's because I'm engaged. I can only do one sort of thinking at a time. And I'm just so interested in this. I never thought I would be so interested in this. And I've learned so much.
Buena, Lindsay.
And, I want to thank you for this, Jim. It took us down a different road. Your slides were great. They were compelling. And the things that I've learned are astonishing. And, moving forward, my new phrase, Jim, sort of a combination of your work and Augustine's work, is dude, pay me in crypto. Uh-huh. That's my new phrase. But that was wonderful, Jim. And thank you for spending the time with us and taking us through that. Really appreciate it.
Excuse my French.
And I hope you're going to stay with us the rest of the day, Jim, because we've got a lot coming on. I think what I'm going to do is just quickly put up my screen with my things that I need to share with the gang. And because Rob's been challenging me, they're not quite the way I expected them to be. So just give me a second. Rob, stop challenging me. I can only handle so much. So here we go. I just want to say that we're moving quickly through the day for anybody who's just joined, and I see we have some people who have just joined. We do a pretty quick passing of the baton. But before we pass the baton to our next session, which is about the end of work, potentially, I'm really enjoying this. The death of taxes, the end of work. There's such possibilities for me to continue to do nothing every day but read cheesy novels. What I'd like to do here, though, is just have a little talk about the fact that, we are the Gray Swan Guild. For anybody who's new to the guild, we are